Stop right there, before you spend another old penny, before you throw one into a jar, and before you assume that a tiny brown coin is worthless. Listen carefully, because some wheat pennies can hide an unbelievable amount of collector value in something that looks almost ordinary.
Welcome back to Hidden Coin Millions, where we search through America's old coins for the pieces that can turn an ordinary collection into a hidden treasure. And today, we are looking at 4 ultra-rare and most valuable wheat pennies that can make collectors stop, look twice, and pay serious attention. But our first coin is where things get extremely interesting. Imagine finding a 1918 wheat penny with no mint mark, a dark brown layer, a circulated appearance, and an unusual error on the reverse side. At first glance, you might think it is simply an old penny that has survived for more than a century. But what if the details hiding on that little coin are exactly what collectors are searching for? Do not scroll away. Do not skip ahead. Because when we finally reveal the value attached to the exact example we are discussing, you may never look at an old wheat penny the same way again. Coin number 1. Now let's begin with our first hidden treasure, the 1918 wheat penny. This is the kind of coin that can immediately capture attention because it comes from an era when American coinage looked very different from the coins most people carry today. More than a century has passed since this penny entered circulation, and every year that passes makes surviving examples more fascinating to collectors. The coin we are focusing on today has no mint mark, a dark brown layer, a circulated condition, and most importantly, an error described on the reverse side. And that combination is exactly where the suspense begins. Because when you are looking at an old coin, the year alone does not tell the entire story. The mint mark, surface appearance, preservation, strike, visible characteristics, and any genuine mint error can dramatically change how collectors view the piece. So do not look at this coin as just an old penny. Look at it as a piece of American history that has survived an extraordinary amount of time. The 1918 wheat penny was produced during a period when the United States was going through enormous historical changes. The country was approaching the end of the First World War. American industry was expanding, and everyday commerce depended heavily on small denomination coins like the Lincoln cent. That means a penny from this era was not created to sit quietly inside a collector's display case. It was made to circulate. It was made to move from hand to hand. It was made to be spent. And that is exactly what makes surviving examples so fascinating today. Think about the journey a coin like this could have experienced. It could have passed through stores, businesses, pockets, cash registers, banks, and countless transactions. It may have disappeared into a drawer for decades, traveled across different parts of the country, and eventually ended up in a collection. More than 100 years later, you could be holding something that has witnessed an entire century of American history. And that alone gives this little wheat penny an incredible story. Now let's talk about the design. The Lincoln cent carries the famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse. Lincoln's portrait was introduced on the cent in 1909, making this design one of the most recognizable images in American coinage. On the reverse, the classic wheat design appears, with 2 wheat ears surrounding the denomination and inscriptions. That wheat reverse is one of the biggest reasons these coins remain so popular. Collectors love wheat pennies because the design immediately takes them back to an earlier America. It looks old. It feels historic. And when you hold a genuine example from the late 1910s, you are looking at a coin that was circulating generations before most modern collectors were even born. Now here comes another important detail. This particular 1918 example has no mint mark. That detail matters. Mint marks can help identify where a coin was produced, and collectors pay close attention to them when determining the rarity and desirability of a particular date and variety. A missing mint mark is not automatically an error. On many U.S. coins, the absence of a mint mark simply indicates production at the Philadelphia Mint. So collectors should never assume that no mint mark automatically means mint error. But that does not make this coin uninteresting. Far from it. The combination of its early date, age, surviving condition, surface characteristics, and the reported reverse side error is what makes this particular example worth examining closely. And now we get to the detail that could make your eyes stop on the coin. The reverse side is described as having an error. That is where collectors become extremely careful. A genuine mint-made error can make an otherwise familiar coin dramatically more interesting. But there is a major difference between a true mint error and damage that happened after the coin left the mint. That distinction is incredibly important. A scratch, scrape, chemical reaction, corrosion, environmental damage, or accidental alteration may look unusual, but unusual does not automatically mean valuable. A genuine mint error is a completely different story. It is connected to something that happened during the manufacturing process. And that is why the reverse side of this particular wheat penny deserves serious attention. If you have an old wheat penny at home with an unusual reverse, do not immediately clean it. Do not polish it. Do not scrape it. Do not try to make the surface brighter. That can destroy the original appearance and potentially hurt collector interest. Instead, examine it exactly as you found it. Use good lighting. Look closely at the lettering. Study the wheat ears. Look at the rim. Examine the fields. Check whether the unusual feature appears to be part of the strike or whether it looks like damage that happened later. Those tiny details can completely change the story. Now let's talk about the dark brown layer described on this 1918 wheat penny. The color of an old copper coin is not just decoration. Copper naturally changes over time through exposure to air, moisture, handling, and its surrounding environment. That process can produce different shades and surfaces, and collectors often pay close attention to the coin's overall appearance. A dark brown appearance can be completely natural on an old circulated copper cent. And when you are dealing with a coin more than a century old, that aged appearance can help tell the story of its long journey. But again, never assume that color alone creates rarity. The real excitement comes from the entire combination. The date, the mint mark status, the condition, the surfaces, the reverse characteristics, and the possibility of a genuine error. That is where the collector's eye becomes incredibly important. Now imagine you discover this coin inside an old collection. You pick it up. You see the 1918 date. You notice there is no mint mark. You see the dark brown surface. Then you turn it over. And suddenly you notice something unusual on the reverse. That is the exact moment when you should stop treating it like ordinary pocket change. Because the first question should no longer be, is this just an old penny? The question becomes, what exactly am I looking at? That question can lead collectors down an incredible path. And this is why old wheat pennies continue to attract so much attention. There is something special about searching through them, because you never know what might be hiding among the ordinary pieces. Some coins are valuable because of their date, some because of their mint mark, some because of their condition, some because of dramatic varieties or genuine mint errors. And sometimes, the combination of several desirable characteristics can make a coin particularly fascinating. That is what makes this 1918 example such a powerful entry in today's list. Now let's talk about condition. The coin we are discussing is described as circulated. That means it has signs consistent with having spent time in everyday use. For a coin this old, that history is not surprising. In fact, Finding a wheat penny from this era with absolutely no signs of circulation would be a completely different situation. But circulated does not mean irrelevant. Not at all. Collectors still examine circulated coins carefully, especially when the date is old and the coin has an unusual characteristic. The important thing is to evaluate exactly what survives on the piece. Are the major design elements still visible? Is the date clear? Can the reverse feature be clearly seen? Are the surfaces original? Is there evidence that the unusual characteristic is connected to the minting process? Those questions matter, and if you believe you have something extraordinary, professional authentication can become one of the most important steps you take. Never rely only on a photograph, a social media comment, or a random online claim when a coin appears to have exceptional value. The strongest discoveries are the ones that can withstand professional examination. Now, collectors, here comes the moment we have been building toward. Remember the exact coin we described? A 1918 wheat penny. No mint mark. Dark brown layer. Circulated condition. And a reported reverse side error. This is not the moment to look away. This is the moment to remember the date. Because according to the value you provided for this exact described example, the market value is $98,700. $98,700. That is the figure supplied for this specific example and condition description. And yes, when a tiny 1-cent coin reaches a figure like that, it stops feeling like ordinary pocket change. It becomes a serious collector treasure. But remember something extremely important. That figure should not be interpreted as a guaranteed price for every 1918 wheat penny. The exact value of a coin depends on authentication, grading, the legitimacy and type of error, preservation, originality, and actual market demand. So if you believe you have a coin matching this description, do not celebrate too early and do not sell it to the first person who shows interest. Verify it, protect it, and get it professionally evaluated. Because if the characteristics are genuine and the coin truly matches the high-value example being discussed, you want to know exactly what you have before making any decision. And collectors, this is where the real treasure hunt begins. If you have old wheat pennies sitting in a box, envelope, jar, drawer, or collection, start paying attention. Do not clean them. Do not throw them away. Do not assume an old penny is worthless simply because it looks worn. Look at the date. Look at the mint mark area. Study both sides. Look for unusual characteristics. And most importantly, preserve the coin exactly as you found it. The value of rare coins can move with collector demand, auction results, rarity, grade, authentication, and market conditions. So while exceptional examples can command enormous pieces, never treat a claimed price as a guaranteed future increase. The smartest collector is not the person who gets excited first. The smartest collector is the person who notices the details first. And that is the lesson from our 1918 wheat penny. One tiny coin, one historic date, one unusual reverse characteristic, and potentially one extraordinary treasure hiding in plain sight. So before we move on, take one more look at your old wheat pennies, because the next coin on our list is going to take this treasure hunt even further. And remember, Hidden Coin Millions is freshly updated every day with more rare U.S. coins, hidden varieties, old pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, and legendary pieces that collectors continue to search for. If you enjoy discovering the hidden stories behind America's rare coins, make sure you stay with us. Coin number 2. We are talking about a 1920 wheat penny with no mint mark, brown spots, a distinctive black dot on the reverse side, and an almost fine circulated condition. At first glance, this might look like nothing more than another old copper penny. But that is exactly how hidden treasures survive. They do not always announce themselves. They do not come with the warning. Sometimes they sit quietly inside an old collection, an inherited coin box, a forgotten envelope, or a pile of pennies that someone has not examined carefully for years. And when you finally turn one over and begin studying the details, the entire story can change. Welcome back to Hidden Coin Millions, where we bring you fresh, rare coin discoveries every day and search for the U.S. Coins that can make collectors stop and look twice. So remember this date, 1920, because this little wheat penny comes from an era that is now more than a century behind us. Think about that for a moment. When this coin entered American commerce, the United States was living through a completely different chapter of history. The First World War had recently ended. The country was entering a new decade, and everyday Americans were using coins like this one in ordinary transactions. Nobody knew which pennies would survive for generations. Nobody knew which pieces would eventually become sought-after collector coins. People simply spent them. And that is what makes old wheat pennies so fascinating today. This 1920 cent was never designed to be a treasure. It was designed to circulate. But more than 100 years later, the coins that survived can tell an incredible story. The Lincoln cent had already become an important part of American coinage by this time. The obverse carries the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, while the reverse displays the famous wheat ear design that gave the series its legendary name. That wheat reverse is one of the most recognizable designs in American coin collecting. Two wheat ears surround the central inscriptions, creating a design that instantly separates these early Lincoln cents from the Lincoln cents most people see today. And when you hold a 1920 wheat penny, you are holding a piece of that earlier generation of American coinage. Now, here is where this particular example becomes interesting. This coin has no mint mark. But collectors, pay attention here. A missing mint mark does not automatically mean that the coin is an error. For many U.S. coins, including Lincoln cents, produced at Philadelphia during this era, the absence of a mint mark can be completely normal. So do not make the mistake of thinking that every penny without a mint mark is automatically rare. Instead, you need to consider the complete identity of the coin. The date, the mint mark status, the condition, the surfaces, the design details, and any unusual characteristics that may appear on either side. That is how serious collectors approach a coin. They do not stop at the first interesting detail. They investigate. And this 1920 example has another detail that immediately grabs attention, the brown spotting across its surface. Now, when you see brown spots on an old copper cent, you should not automatically assume that every spot is an error or a valuable variety. Copper reacts with its environment over time. The surface can change. The color can darken. Natural toning and environmental effects can create a wide range of appearances. But those surfaces are still important because they become part of the coin's overall condition and visual character. And this is why you should never take an old copper coin and start polishing it just because it looks dark. That can permanently alter the surface. An old coin is not supposed to look like a brand new coin. Its age is part of its identity. Its original surface is part of its story. And sometimes the most important thing a collector can do is simply leave the coin alone. Now turn this 1920 wheat penny over. This is where the suspense increases. On the reverse side, the coin is described as having a black dot. That tiny dark feature may immediately catch your eye. But here is where patience matters. A dark mark can have many possible causes, and appearance alone cannot prove that something is a mint-made error. A genuine mint error needs proper examination and authentication. That is why experienced collectors study the shape, location, depth, relationship to the design, and overall appearance of an unusual feature before reaching a conclusion. The question is not simply, is there a black dot? The real question is, why is that black dot there? That is the kind of question that separates casual coin searching from serious collecting. And when you are searching through old wheat pennies, that mindset can make the entire experience more exciting. Because now, you are no longer simply looking at old money. You are investigating. You are comparing. You are searching for clues. You are asking whether the unusual feature formed during minting or appeared later through circulation or environmental exposure. That investigation is where the real excitement begins. Now let's talk about the condition described for this coin. This 1920 wheat penny is described as being in almost fine condition. That means the coin has experienced circulation, but enough of its design remains for collectors to examine its important characteristics. With a coin this old, circulation is not surprising. Remember, this was a working piece of money. It was made to move through the economy. It was not made to sit inside a protective holder for 100 years. So when an old wheat penny survives with visible design details and an interesting combination of characteristics, collectors may still pay close attention to it. The date needs to remain clear. The major design elements need to be identifiable. The surfaces need to be carefully examined. And any unusual feature should be investigated rather than simply assumed to be valuable. That is especially important when someone claims that an old coin is worth an extraordinary amount of money. A photograph can create excitement. A description can create curiosity. But professional authentication is what can establish what the coin actually is. So if you ever find a 1920 wheat penny that appears unusual, protect it. Do not clean it. Do not scratch it. Do not scrape away the dark areas. Do not try to improve the appearance yourself. Keep the coin in its original state and have it examined properly if the characteristics appear significant. Because once a collector believes a coin may contain something unusual, preserving the evidence becomes incredibly important. Now let's step back and appreciate the history behind this tiny piece of copper. The 1920s were beginning. America was entering a new era. The country was changing rapidly. Technology was advancing. Cities were growing. Consumer culture was expanding. And ordinary Americans were still carrying coins like this wheat penny every day. This tiny cent was part of that world. And then time did what time always does. Decades passed. People changed. Families changed. Coins disappeared into drawers and collections. Some were lost forever. Some were worn beyond recognition. Some were melted or discarded. And a smaller number survived. That survival is part of what makes old coin collecting so addictive. You are not just searching for an object. You are searching through what history left behind. And this 1920 wheat penny is exactly the kind of coin that makes that search exciting. No mint mark. Brown spotting. A black dot described on the reverse. Almost fine condition. And an early date that takes us back more than a century. Put all of those details together and you can understand why this example deserves attention. But now comes the moment we have been waiting for. Do you remember the value we are discussing? Do not blink. Do not skip this part. According to the current market value you provided for this exact described example, the value is $86,400. $86,400. That is the supplied current value for the specific example and condition you described. A number like that completely changes the way you look at a little wheat penny. This is where an ordinary-looking cent can begin to feel like a serious hidden treasure. But collectors, remember this important point. That figure should not be interpreted as a guaranteed selling price for every 1920 wheat penny. The actual value of any individual coin depends on authentication, exact variety or error attribution, grade, preservation, originality, and real buyer demand. So if you believe you have an example matching these characteristics, do not rush to sell it. Protect it, document it, study it, and have the unusual characteristics professionally evaluated. That is how you turn excitement into knowledge. And that is how serious collectors protect potentially valuable discoveries. Now here is my challenge for everyone watching Hidden Coin Millions. Go back through those old wheat pennies. Look at the dates. Turn every coin over. Check the surfaces. Look carefully at the lettering. Study the wheat ears. Look around the rims. And pay attention to unusual marks or characteristics, but never assume that every unusual mark is automatically a mint error. The treasure hunt requires patience. It requires observation. And sometimes it requires a professional opinion. Most importantly, never clean an old coin simply because you think you can make it look better. The original surface can be far more important than a shiny appearance. A century-old copper cent has already survived an incredible journey. Your job as a collector is to preserve that journey. And remember, the market for collectible coins can change as collector demand, auction results, rarity assessments, authentication, and grading change. Exceptional examples can attract tremendous attention, but no future price increase is guaranteed. So when someone tells you that a coin is valuable, ask the right questions. What exactly makes it valuable? Is the feature genuine? Has it been authenticated? What is the exact grade? Is the price supported by actual market evidence? Those questions can protect you from mistakes and help you understand what you really have. And that is the true power of coin hunting. You can walk past hundreds of ordinary coins without noticing anything. But one unusual date can stop you. One unusual reverse can make you investigate. One overlooked penny can send you searching for answers. And sometimes that search leads to a remarkable discovery. This 1920 wheat penny is our second treasure of the day. It carries more than a date. It carries history. It carries mystery. And based on the supplied valuation for this exact described example, it carries an astonishing collector value of $86,400. So before you throw away another old wheat penny, take a second look. Because the coin you think is ordinary may deserve a much closer examination. And stay with Hidden Coin Millions because we are not finished yet. This channel is freshly updated every day with more rare U.S. coins, hidden varieties, old pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, and other pieces that continue to capture the attention of collectors. We have already uncovered 2 extraordinary wheat pennies, but there are still 2 more coins waiting. And if you think this 1920 wheat penny was incredible, wait until you see what comes next. The treasure hunt continues. Coin number 3. The coin is a 1934 wheat penny with no mint mark, brown spots across the surface, black and brown dots on the reverse, and an old, circulated appearance. And I want you to remember something before we go any further. Do not judge this coin by its color. Do not judge it by its age-worn appearance. And definitely do not judge it by its tiny size, because sometimes the smallest objects in a collection can carry the biggest stories. Welcome back to Hidden Coin Millions, your freshly updated destination for rare U.S. coins, hidden varieties, old pennies, and extraordinary collector discoveries. We have already uncovered 2 fascinating wheat pennies, but coin number 3 is about to take us deeper into the mystery. So stay with me, because when you hear the figure attached to the exact example we are discussing, you are going to understand why serious coin hunters never ignore an old wheat penny without examining it first. Now let's go back to the beginning. 1934. America was living through a dramatically different time. The country was deep in the Great Depression. Millions of Americans were dealing with difficult economic conditions, yet coins like this wheat penny continued moving through everyday life. This was not a coin created for collectors sitting safely behind glass. It was real working money. It was spent. It circulated. It passed from one person to another, and every transaction added another chapter to its journey. That is what makes a surviving wheat penny from this period so fascinating. You are looking at a tiny piece of metal that has survived more than 9 decades. Think about how many hands could have touched it, how many pockets could have carried it, how many stores could have accepted it, how many years could have passed before someone finally stopped and asked, "What exactly is this coin?" That is the question that begins every great coin discovery. Now look at the date, 1934. The Lincoln cent was already a well-established part of American coinage by this time. The obverse features Abraham Lincoln, whose portrait had appeared on the cent since 1909. Turn the coin over, and you find the famous wheat reverse. 2 wheat ears frame the design, creating the classic appearance that collectors instantly recognize as a wheat penny. And that design is more than an attractive image. It identifies an important chapter in the history of the Lincoln cent. For collectors today, wheat pennies are popular because they combine history, recognizable design, and the possibility of finding unusual dates, varieties, and mint-made characteristics. But this particular 1934 example has several visual details that make it especially interesting. First, there is no mint mark. Again, collectors, this is important. A coin without a mint mark is not automatically an error. For Lincoln cents struck at Philadelphia during this period, the absence of a mint mark can be completely normal. So if you find a 1934 wheat penny without a mint mark, do not immediately assume you have discovered a minting mistake. Instead, look at the entire coin. That is where the real investigation begins. The date, the surfaces, the condition, the reverse, the edges, and any unusual marks or characteristics. Now let's talk about the brown spots described on this coin. Brown coloration is something you will frequently encounter when examining old copper cents. Copper naturally changes over time. Exposure to the environment can alter the appearance of the surface, producing different shades and patterns. Some old pennies become darker. Some develop reddish-brown tones. Others become deep brown. And some develop spots or areas of discoloration. That is why collectors should never confuse an unusual color with a guaranteed mint error. The surface tells you something about the coin's history, but it does not automatically tell you that the coin was struck incorrectly. And that brings us to the reverse. Because this 1934 wheat penny is described as having black and brown dots on the reverse side. Now stop for a second. Look at that detail in your mind. You have an old wheat penny. You see the wheat ears. You see the lettering. And scattered across the reverse, you notice dark and brown dots. That is exactly the type of feature that should make a careful collector stop and investigate. But do not rush to a conclusion. The most valuable lesson in coin hunting is this. Unusual does not automatically mean rare. You have to determine what caused the unusual appearance. Could it be natural surface toning? Could it be environmental exposure? Could it be post-mint damage? Could it be a genuine mint-made characteristic? Those possibilities need to be separated. And that is why serious collectors use magnification, proper lighting, comparison with known examples, and professional examination when necessary. If you find an old coin with strange marks, do not attack those marks with chemicals. Do not polish the surface. Do not scrape the dots. Do not attempt to make the coin look new, because the original surface is evidence. Once you alter it, you may destroy important information about the coin's history and condition. Preservation comes first. Now let's examine the edge. The coin is described as having an old edge, and the edge of a coin is often overlooked by beginners. But collectors know that you should never examine only the front and back. The edge can reveal additional information about a coin's condition, damage, manufacturing characteristics, and overall preservation. When you hold an old wheat penny, rotate it slowly. Look at the rim. Look for unusual cuts. Look for evidence of damage. Look for anything that appears inconsistent with normal circulation. And always compare what you see with the overall condition of the coin. Because sometimes the smallest detail can answer the biggest question. Now let's talk about this coin's condition. The description tells us that it has an old appearance. That is completely understandable for a coin dating back to 1934. This is not a modern cent. It has survived decades of history. The surface may show the effects of age, handling, circulation, and environmental exposure. But an old, circulated appearance does not erase the importance of the date. Collectors examine the entire coin. They consider what remains. They study the clarity of the date. They inspect the lettering. They evaluate the wheat ears. They examine the surfaces. And they investigate unusual features. That is how you begin understanding a coin instead of simply guessing its value. And there is another reason this coin deserves attention. It is the combination. One characteristic alone may not tell the entire story. But when you put the date together with the absence of a mint mark, the brown spotting, the unusual black and brown dots on the reverse, and the old condition, you have a coin that deserves a closer look. This is exactly why coin hunting can become so addictive. You can have a pile of old pennies that appears completely ordinary. Then, one coin catches your attention. Maybe it has an unusual date. Maybe the reverse looks different. Maybe the surface has a strange characteristic. And suddenly, you are no longer sorting pennies. You are searching for clues. That is the feeling every serious collector understands. The moment when an ordinary coin becomes a mystery. And this 1934 wheat penny has that mystery. Now imagine finding it inside an old collection. Maybe it has been sitting there for decades. Maybe the previous owner never realized exactly what they were holding. Maybe it was simply passed down from one generation to another. And now, you are the person turning it over and examining every detail. That is the beauty of old American coins. They can survive long after the people who originally used them are gone. The coin remains. The history remains. And sometimes the collector opportunity remains hidden inside the details. Now we are getting close to the moment everyone has been waiting for. But before I reveal the supplied value, remember exactly what we are talking about. This is a 1934 wheat penny. No mint mark. Brown spots. Black and brown dots on the reverse. An old, circulated appearance. And a collector story that deserves serious attention. So here comes the number. According to the current market value you provided for this exact described example, the value is $67,900. $67,900. That is the supplied value for the specific example and condition description you gave me. And that is the moment when a tiny old wheat penny suddenly looks very different. It is no longer just an old cent. It becomes a potential hidden treasure worth serious collector attention. But remember, collectors, this figure should not be treated as a guaranteed price for every 1934 wheat penny. The actual market value of a particular coin depends on its authenticity, exact variety, or error attribution, grade, surface quality, originality, and actual buyer demand. If you believe you have a coin matching these characteristics, protect it before doing anything else. Do not clean it. Do not polish it. Do not remove the brown spots. Do not try to scrape away the black dots. And do not let excitement push you into making a rushed decision. Have the coin examined by a qualified numismatist or reputable grading and authentication service if you believe its characteristics could be significant. That is how you protect a potentially important discovery. Now here is another collector tip that can make a huge difference. When searching through wheat pennies, never examine only the coins that look beautiful. Sometimes the coin that looks dark, old, or heavily circulated is the one that deserves another look. But remember, appearance alone is not proof of rarity. The goal is not to find the prettiest penny. The goal is to identify the exact characteristics that make a particular coin unusual. That means studying dates, checking mint marks, examining both sides, inspecting edges, looking for genuine varieties, and preserving the original surfaces. That is how you turn casual coin searching into serious collecting. And there is something incredibly powerful about this 1934 wheat penny. It has survived an era that most of us can only imagine. It passed through a country experiencing enormous change. It traveled through everyday American commerce. It survived decades of handling and environmental exposure. And somehow, more than 90 years later, we are still talking about it. That is the real treasure hidden inside old coins. The value is not only in the metal, it is in the survival. It is in the history. It is in the rarity. And when an unusual characteristic enters the story, the excitement becomes even greater. So if you have a jar of old wheat pennies sitting somewhere at home, this is your reminder. Do not rush past them. Take them out. Look at the dates. Turn them over. Examine the reverse. Study the edges. And if something looks unusual, preserve it exactly as you found it. Because you never know which coin will make you stop and say, "Wait a minute, what is this?" That is the moment every treasure hunter is waiting for. And Hidden Coin Millions is freshly updated every day because the search never stops. Every day there are more old U.S. coins to examine, more wheat pennies to investigate, more dates to discover, more varieties to learn about, and more hidden stories waiting inside America's coinage. Our first two coins were already enough to make any collector pay attention. Now, coin number 3 has brought us another incredible date and another remarkable collector story. But we are not finished. There is still one final wheat penny waiting at the end of this list. And after everything we have uncovered so far, you already know one thing. The smallest coin in your collection may deserve the biggest second look. So keep your old wheat pennies. Keep searching. Keep examining both sides. And most importantly, never assume that an old coin is worthless simply because it looks ordinary. Because sometimes the treasure is not obvious. Sometimes it is hiding in the date. Sometimes it is hiding in the details. And sometimes it is hiding where almost nobody thinks to look. Stay with Hidden Coin Millions. The final coin is coming next. Coin number 4. Because this last coin is a 1958 with D wheat penny. It has brown and black spots across the surface, green dots, additional brown and black spotting on the reverse, and an old appearance. And there is something especially fascinating about that date. 1958 is from the final year of the regular wheat reverse Lincoln cent. That means this little coin comes from the closing chapter of one of the most iconic designs in American coinage. So before you dismiss it as simply another old penny, stop. Look again. Because when a coin comes from the end of an era, every surviving example becomes part of that story. Welcome back to Hidden Coin Millions. If you have been with us through coins number 1, 2, and 3, you already know that the smallest coins can hide extraordinary stories. And if this is your first time here, remember the name, Hidden Coin Millions, because we bring you freshly updated rare coin content every day, focusing on the old US. coins collectors love to search for. Now let's go back to 1958. By this point, the Lincoln cent had already been part of American life for nearly half a century. The wheat reverse had been introduced in 1909, and generation after generation had become familiar with those two wheat ears surrounding the denomination and inscriptions. But 1958 was different. It was the final regular year of the wheat reverse. The following year, the Lincoln Memorial Reverse would replace it. So when you hold a 1958 wheat penny, you are holding a coin from the closing moment of an important design era. That gives this date a special place in the Lincoln cent story. Now look closely at this particular example. It carries a D mint mark. That tiny letter is important because it identifies production associated with the Denver Mint. And this is where collectors need to understand something very clearly. A D mint mark does not automatically make a coin rare. The mint mark is simply one part of the coin's identity. The real collector story comes from the complete combination of date, mint, condition, surface, variety, and any genuine mint-made characteristics. So do not look at that little D and immediately assume you have a fortune. Instead, use it as another clue. Look at everything. And this particular coin has plenty to examine. The obverse is described as having brown and black spots. There are also green dots. Then you turn the coin over, and the reverse shows additional brown and black spotting. Now the coin suddenly becomes visually fascinating. But this is where a serious collector needs to slow down. Color can tell a story, but color alone does not prove rarity. Copper coins naturally react with their environment. Over decades, exposure to air, moisture, handling, storage conditions, and other environmental factors can change the appearance of the surface. Brown coloration is common on older copper cents. Dark areas can also develop. Green material or green spots can sometimes appear as a result of environmental exposure and copper corrosion. That means you should never automatically call green spots a mint error, and you should never assume every dark mark was created at the mint. The real question is, what caused the feature? That is the mystery collectors have to solve. And when a coin has multiple unusual surface characteristics, the investigation becomes even more important. Look at the date. Look at the D mint mark. Study Lincoln's portrait. Examine the lettering. Inspect the wheat ears. Look carefully around the rim. Then turn the coin over and examine the entire reverse. Do not focus only on the spots. Look at the relationship between the spots and the design. Are they part of the metal? Are they raised? Are they embedded? Do they appear to be environmental? Do they look like damage? Could there be another variety or mint-made characteristic hiding underneath? Those are the kinds of questions that turn an ordinary coin search into serious collecting. And there is another detail that makes this coin particularly interesting. This is not just any wheat penny. It is from the final year of the wheat reverse. Think about the significance of that. For almost 50 years, the wheat design had been part of American pocket change. Millions upon millions of Americans had handled these coins. Children had saved them. Adults had spent them. Stores had accepted them. Banks had processed them. Collectors had already begun saving certain examples. And then, after 1958, the design was gone from regular Lincoln cents. The next chapter was about to begin. The Lincoln Memorial Reverse would arrive in 1959. That makes 1958 the closing chapter of the original wheat reverse era. And that historical connection gives the coin an additional layer of collector interest. Now imagine finding one today. You pull an old penny from a collection. The surface is dark. There are brown and black spots. You notice green dots. You turn it over and see even more brown and black spotting. Then you notice the date. 1958. You look closer, and there is the D-mint mark. Suddenly, the coin is no longer something you casually throw into a pile. You begin asking questions. Is it authentic? How well preserved is it? What caused the unusual surface? Is there an actual variety? Is there a genuine mint-made error? Has the coin been professionally evaluated? Those questions matter far more than simply saying, it looks rare. Because real coin collecting is about evidence. Now let's talk about preservation. If you ever discover an old copper cent with strange brown, black, or green areas, resist the temptation to clean it. This is one of the biggest mistakes a collector can make. Do not use household chemicals. Do not use abrasive materials. Do not polish the surface. Do not scrape the green material away. Do not try to make the coin shine. A coin's original surface can be extremely important to its evaluation. Cleaning can leave scratches, alter the surface, and potentially reduce collector desirability. So if the coin looks old, let it look old. The age is part of the story. The surface is part of the evidence. And the history is part of the treasure. Now let's think about collector demand. Wheat pennies remain popular because they are accessible, historic, recognizable, and fun to search. Collectors can find them in old collections, inherited coin boxes, rolls, estate collections, and other places where older U.S. coins have been preserved. But certain dates and characteristics attract more attention than ordinary examples. A final year wheat reverse adds historical significance. A D-mint mark identifies the production location. Distinctive surfaces create a reason to investigate. And any genuine variety or mint-made error can potentially change the collector story dramatically. That is why this 1958 with D example deserves a closer look. Not because every 1958 with D wheat penny is automatically worth a huge amount, but because this particular example has the combination of characteristics you are looking at today. And now, collectors, we have reached the final reveal. 4 coins, 4 dates, 4 different stories. And now, we are at the last number. The exact 1958 D wheat penny we have been describing, with the brown and black spots, green dots, reverse side brown and black spotting, and old condition, has the supplied market value of $48,700. $48,700. That is the current value figure you supplied for this exact described example. And just imagine that for a moment. A 1-cent coin. A coin from the final year of the wheat reverse. A coin that could easily be overlooked when mixed with ordinary pocket change. And a supplied valuation reaching $48,700. That is why old coins can be such an exciting treasure hunt. But remember, this is not a claim that every 1958 D wheat penny is worth $48,700. The actual value of an individual coin depends on its exact characteristics, authentication, grade, originality, variety or error attribution, surface condition, and real-world collector demand. If you believe you have a comparable example, protect it first and have it properly evaluated before making any selling decision. Now here is the final collector lesson from this entire video. Never judge a coin by size. Never judge it only by color. Never assume an unusual spot automatically means an error. And never clean an old coin because you think you can make it more valuable. Instead, investigate, study, compare, preserve, and authenticate when the evidence suggests you may have something exceptional. Because that is how hidden treasures are found. Not by guessing, by noticing, not by rushing, by examining, and not by destroying the evidence, by protecting it. Think about the 4 wheat pennies we have uncovered today. Our first coin took us back to 1918. Then we traveled to 1920. Then 1934. And finally, 1958, the final year of the classic wheat reverse. That is more than a list of dates. That is a journey through decades of American history. From one generation to another, these tiny cents continued moving through the country. And now collectors are still searching for them. That is why I want you to look at your old coins differently. If you have wheat pennies at home, don't simply dump them into a container and forget about them. Take your time. Read the dates. Check the mint marks. Turn them over. Examine the reverse. Look at the rims and edges. Study unusual characteristics. And keep the coins in their original condition whenever possible. Because you never know when one small detail could change the entire story. And remember, Hidden Coin Millions is freshly updated every day. Every day, we bring you more rare U.S. coins, more historic pennies, more hidden varieties, and more collector stories designed to make you look twice at the coins around you. If you enjoyed this treasure hunt, stay connected with the channel because the search does not end with these 4 wheat pennies. There are still countless old U.S. coins waiting to be examined. Some are common, some are historic, some are unusual, and a very small number can become extraordinary collector pieces. So before you spend, discard, clean, or ignore an old wheat penny, stop. Look at the date. Look at the mint mark. Look at both sides. Look at the edge. And ask yourself one question. Could this be the coin everyone else overlooked? That question is where every great treasure hunt begins. And here at Hidden Coin Millions, the hunt continues every single day.